Another story that was striking this week. We didn't get a chance to talk about this on Monday, but I wanted to cover this. It's this attempt to criminalize protest. This blatant attempt by the Trump administration and state legislatures, Republican-controlled state legislatures, to criminalize protests. So Donald Trump, along with Jeff Sessions, his new attorney general, along with legislatures across several U.S. states, they're trying to turn protest and dissent into criminal acts, carrying actual prison sentences of 5 to 40 years. And this is a part of not only state laws, but this is directly a result of an executive order that President Trump has issued. So the executive order seems to target specifically Black Lives Matter activists and the Native Americans at Standing Rock in North Dakota. Trump has already signed an order commanding that construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline is to go forward. And if you recall, when he was signing that order, when he was discussing signing the order, he said that he had not heard any complaints and he had not seen any controversy or any opposition to the plan. But the executive order says that it is intended to prevent violence to police officers and call for a review of existing laws with an eye toward proposing new legislation that will define, quote, new crimes of violence and establishing new mandatory minimum sentences for existing crimes of violence against federal, state, tribal, and local law enforcement officers. In addition to the executive order, there's several states that are ratcheting up the pressure on nonviolent protesters. Another bill is under consideration in Minnesota. It's called the Minnesota Public Safety Personnel Protection Act, and it would require a minimum of 12 months in prison and a fine of up to $10,000 for any protester who obstructs police or other public employees. Not resist arrest, not assaults a police officer, but obstructs police officers. Here's the thing. Trying to prove that you're innocent in a case like that, you're going to need, according to this law, you're going to need video surveillance. You're going to need to prove that the police officers provoked an incident. But the irony of this is that filming the police in many states and jurisdictions itself has become illegal. Republicans in Washington state have proposed a plan to make any acts of civil disobedience that qualify as, quote, economic terrorism a felony. What the hell is economic terrorism, you may be wondering? Well, in many cases, it's whatever the local police and prosecutors say it is. It could include boycotts, or it could include protests that take place inside of a place of business that could cause business to decline momentarily. But if they deem it to be economic terrorism, you can be arrested. Now, with any executive order and with any law, the question is, will it stand up to constitutional scrutiny? The reality of it is a lot of these things are probably so unconstitutional, they would not survive the lower federal court. Of course, it would always go up to the Supreme Court. But the problem is, in between the time someone actually files a lawsuit, and maybe I should call this the gap problem, right? So, yes, this will be challenged just like his executive order banning Muslims. But the problem is, in between the time someone is arrested and a lawsuit is filed and it reaches the Supreme Court and we find it to be unconstitutional, which I can't imagine how this won't be unconstitutional, depending on the makeup of the court. The reality of it is, in that gap period, people will be arrested, people will be tried, and protesters will be found guilty and begin sentences. So, unless a lower court, a federal court issues a stay saving something like that, these acts, these laws, and this executive order has a chilling effect on protests, which, if we can't say anything else about the Trump administration, we could say that it has been met with an onslaught of protests, and this is their way of fighting back, allegedly.